I have a new series. It's called What If Jiraiya and Tsunade Adopted Naruto. It'll be coming out today. Also, I've updated a series. It is now called What If Naruto Was on a Team with Itachi and Shisui. The ship is Anko, so if you want to see an Anko ship, go and check that out. I will leave the playlist at the end of this video. It has 6 parts out, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of it in the future. Also, check out my Instagram. The link will be in the description. When that hits 200 followers, which is like 50 or 40 something more, I will upload an hour what if of this. And what if Naruto was in High School DxD? Unless this is What If Naruto High School DxD, then I would be uploading What If Naruto Wasn't Dumb and this. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video and roll the intro. Sasuke growled and went to snatch the card from him, but Naruto playfully put it out of reach, though there was a dangerous glint in his eyes. "Sorry, Sasuke, Kabuto, but I don't like my cards to be displayed until the end of the game." He clapped the card between his hands, and when he separated them, only small pieces of the card fell out. His eyes then narrowed as he looked at Kabuto. "You really shouldn't give out information like that, Kabuto-san. It may come back to bite you in the back one day." On the inside, he was trying to figure Kabuto out. Just who is this guy? Getting information on Lee wouldn't be so hard, but how did he acquire the mission stats of a foreign nin, who is also a Jinchuriki, when they can be accessed by the Kazekage only and his council? It's obvious that he knows way too much to be a genin. And why am I getting the feeling of snakes from this guy? I have to inform Gigi of this somehow. The type of information opens up the possibility that he is a spy. Kabuto held his hands up in surrender. "I meant no harm, Naruto. I just like to gather information is all." Naruto didn't look convinced, but gave it a rest. Kabuto thought, "Guess I won't be making his job any harder." His master would be so disappointed. Naruto's senses spiked, and he caught a movement in the corner of his eyes. He saw a ninja with a headband having a musical note flying through the air, throwing 2 kunai into the floor in front of Kabuto, who jumped back in time for another one with the same headband, but had his head covered in bandages, to appear in front of him and taking a swing at Kabuto. Kabuto dodged, smirking, but his glasses suddenly shattered and he collapsed onto his knees, throwing up. 3 nin, 2 boys and 1 girl stood in front of Kabuto, radiating killing intent. "Pathetic," the bandaged one scoffed. "Aren't you supposed to be a 4-year-old veteran?" Meanwhile, Naruto was trying to figure out what just happened. If nothing hit Kabuto, why did his glasses shatter? And why the hell did he throw up? Was it pressurized air? Kurama scowled and spoke from within. "Think, Naruto. What is the symbol on his forehead protector say?" Naruto frowned. "It's a musical note." Kurama prompted him further. "Music is a form of sound, and how does sound travel?" Naruto replied, "Through the medium of air." "Oh," he smirked. He manipulated the sound waves to target the ear and throw off his balance. He shook his head. "Foolish guy. He just gave away his main attack." Naruto turned to see the spiky-haired ninja talking. "Write this down on your card. 3 Otagaki-eared ninja. Definite future Junin." An explosion of smoke went down in front of the class, and a voice was heard. When the smoke cleared, there was a large man wearing a black trench coat, black fingerless gloves, and a bandana was standing. He was intimidating, and he had an intimidating stature and a harsh tone that followed ensured that his words will heeded quickly. This was Morino Ibiki, if I'm not wrong. Konoha's top interrogator alongside Yamanaka Inoichi and Akuna Sensei's superior. Naruto speculated. "Alright, you maggots. Shut the hell up and sit down in your assigned seats. The first part of the exam will begin now. Any fighting will lead straight to disqualification." Pointing to the Otagaki ninjas, he said, "You better stop doing that if you want if you don't want to fail before even the exam starts. He watched as everyone went to their assigned seats. Once everyone was settled, he began explaining the exam. This is an exam in which you start off with 10 points. There are 2 rules to this exam. The first rule, this is a team test. Whether you pass or not will be determined by the combined score of your teammates. Second rule, anyone caught any sneaky activities, namely cheating, will... He smiled in a sinister way that sent shivers down many people's spines. Will have 2 points taken off for every offense. You have 45 minutes. Begin! The sound of papers turning sounded for a brief moment. Naruto just inspected where his teammates were seated. To his disappointment, they were seated quite far. Turning his eyes on the test, he raised an eyebrow in disbelief. What type of questions are these? They're no Genin level, that's for sure, which means they want the Genin to cheat. This exam is testing our information gathering. He gave an impressed smirk at that, but then frowned. I may have photographic memory, but it defeats the whole purpose of this test if I write what I know. What to do now? He scanned the room, looking for someone who was confidently filling out the answer at a high speed. He smirked when he saw one sitting in the column to his left, 2 rows above him. Got him. Now I just have to figure out how to learn his answers. Or maybe I can switch your tests. He pondered for 2 minutes on what to do. Watching his peers cheat, Sasuke was copying answers with his Sharingan. Sakura was writing on her own since she knew the answers. Tenten had cleverly altered the ceiling flap to reflect someone's answers. Hinata was using her Byakugan. Shino was using his bugs to cheat. Kiba and Akamaru on top of his head, barking his answers to him. Shikamaru did not need to cheat, as he had already know the answer since he was smart. Got it. First, he would have to scope out the field. He spent the next 5 minutes watching the investigators walk, trying to find a pattern. Finally, he found a loophole. There were 4 columns of students, with 1 column separated. The first investigator between the first 2 columns walked with the invigilator. Oh, I said investigator, didn't I? It's invigilator. Between the last 2. Ibiki walked in the center of the second and third columns, but he always moved opposite to the other 2 invigilators. So there was a point where all 3 of them were in a row when they went in the opposite direction of each other. There was a 3-second interval during which none of them were facing him. After that interval, the 3 of them would face the class from their respective ends, which means he had 3 seconds to make his plan work. Second, know the number of the desk from which was going to cheat from. The test paper didn't have a space to write their names, but a space where they had to write their desk numbers. So he deduced that teams will be identified from the numbers of the desk they were sitting on. Every team had been given specific seats according to the seating plan next to the board. So when Ibiki came across the papers from the desk numbers 8, 21, and 27, he would know he was looking at the papers of Team 7 according to the seating plan. Now that he knew what he needed to know, it was time to act. Counting from now, he discreetly pulled out 2 smoke bombs during the first interval under the pretense of scratching his back. Maybe it was a bit overkill, but he needed to remain unseen. He waited till the guys were finished writing. 5th interval was when he hit the fan. As soon as the back of the invigilators were turned to him, he wasted no time and threw the smoke bomb onto the floor. 1 on the right and 1 on the left. Roars of anger and panic could be heard throughout the classroom, as no one could see their test. Windows were open to let the smoke out, and once it was cleared, several of them looked confused as nothing had happened to their test. Naruto, however, was calmly pretending to keep writing on the sheet, on which answers were already filled out. The guy whose sheet he stole had a panicked look on his face when he saw that the sheet in front of him had all the wrong answers written down. There was even a mocking note that said better luck next time. The worst thing that the sheet in front of him had his desk number written on it. There wasn't enough time to erase and write the correct answer all over again. Yeah, Naruto was not above such petty things from time to time. Naruto calmly erased the desk number on the sheet he stole and wrote his own down. What happened was when the smoke spread, Naruto quickly created a shadow clone that had instantly transformed into a finger-sized version of him. The clone had taken a hold of his sheet and substituted it with the sheet of the guy Naruto had decided to cheat from. By the time smoke cleared, Naruto had already finished the job. Ibiki was slightly irritated at the ruckus caused. He held his hand out for silence. Anyone who lost their sheet might as well get out with your team. Surprisingly, none of them moved to get up. Ibiki deduced that whoever had done that was only looking out for himself. Though I'm interested in learning just who exactly did that, he thought as his eyes swept around the room. His eyes looked at Naruto, who simply leaned back in his chair, eyes up to the ceiling and an uncaring look on his face. His eyes narrowed the tiniest bit in suspicion. Naruto was well known for his successful pranks all around the village. Uzumaki Naruto. He doesn't look bothered in the least. He could be the one. His face etched back into his neutral face. Then again, he hasn't looked the least bit bothered since the beginning of this test. And just like that, he lifted his suspicion off Naruto, continuing to watch the class closely. Uzumaki pranking code of conduct. Rule 2. In the aftermath of a prank, throw suspicion off yourself in any way possible. At the end of the 45-minute, Ibiki looked at the clock on the wall and nodded to himself. He turned his head to open the door, through which Kakuro, who had gone through the bathroom, entered. Was your doll playing any beneficial? He asked, smirking. The pupper user flinched, surprised he had been caught. Go sit down, he ordered Kankuro. I just said Kankuro. It's Kankuro. After he was seated, Ibiki started emitting a sadistic aura. Time's up! You now have a choice to present to you, to either take the 10th question or not to take it, he stated, much to the confusion of the genin. Choose? A familiar voice shouted from the back. Naruto turned to see Tamari, whose eyes displayed confused anger. What happens if you choose not to? At that point, Naruto simply stopped caring what Ibiki said. He just kept watching Tamari, a small, dreamy smile on his face. Tamari caught his gaze and blushed, averting her face and trying to quell the growing blush. Why is he staring at me like that? Ibiki chuckled darkly. If you choose not to, your points will be reduced to 0. You'll be failed along with your teammates. Everyone started to shout in protest, but a sudden bout of killing intent from Ibiki silenced them. Also, if you choose to take it and answer incorrectly, you will lose the right to ever participate in the future tuning exams. Kiba hollered in anger. What kind of rule is that? Getting from before we're still able to take the tuning exams, so why is this exam any different? Ibiki released another dark chuckle. The one gave out when he was being extremely sadistic. The other genin didn't have me as the proctor. My test, my rules. Choose. I haven't gotten all day. Naruto observed that Ibiki had all the genin quivering now. He waited until several teams had quit to make his move. Lesser the competition, the better their chances after all. Giving a wink to Tamari, whose blush darkened to cover her entire face, he turned around and stood up. All the playfulness from earlier when he was flirting with Tamari vanished from his face. Ibiki stared at the blonde, along with all the others, whose face was set in dead seriousness. His eyelids were half dropped, but he still looked entirely serious. I don't care what happens at all. I have a dream of becoming Hokage that no one can stop me from achieving. I'll do it even if I have to stay again to do so. Do your worst, but know this. He pointed a finger at Ibiki without any fear. Rank means nothing to me at all. Everyone was watching Naruto with disbelief, who never once broke eye contact with Ibiki. Ibiki himself was thrown off by the sheer conviction displayed in the voice and eyes of a 12-year-old. Sarako was in awe of Naruto's declaration. Sasuke gave a sigh of relief, for he thought Naruto was going to quit. Each of the rookies except for 1 or 2 held a newfound respect for Naruto. The whole room was silent, and everyone that remained had caught every word, and the results were staggering. Ibiki smirked. Huh, he's interesting. He wiped out everyone's uncertainty. Looking around the room, he counted how many were remaining. 57, huh? There are more left than I expected. There's no point in waiting anymore. Congratulations, you all pass, Ibiki declared, and had to fight the smile that threatened to appear on his face at the bafflement of as well as the disbelief of the genin. But what about the 10th question? A genin from Ame demanded to know. That was the 10th question. It was a question to test your will and fortitude. As a chunin, you'll be forced to take tough decisions, and no one needs weak-willed chunin leading their forces to the deaths. By asking this question, you've shown me your determination and willingness to do the best for your villagers, even with handicaps, he explained. Temari spoke up once again. So the other questions were for nothing? And once again, she blushed when Naruto turned to stare at her with a smile. No, the test was for info gathering and to see how much balls you had, he answered, looking in the direction of Naruto, who turned back and gave a graceful shrug. This marks the end of the first phase of the Chunin selection exams. I wish you luck for the next phase, Ibiki smiled, which was surprisingly pleasant and not all that disturbing. Before he could say anything else, he caught something from the corner of his eyes and stepped back just in time for a ball of cloth to come crashing through the window. 2 kunai flew out of the cloth and stuck to the ceiling, unfurling the cloth, revealing a very familiar purple-haired woman wearing a brown trench coat. On the cloth, it was written, Second Exam Proctor, Mitarashi Anko. You guys, there is no time to be happy, she exclaimed. I'm the proctor of the second test, Mitarashi Anko. The real exam starts now. Are you ready? She shouted and pumped her fist into air. Ibiki came from behind the cloth. Grasp the atmosphere, will you? Anko blushed at his deadpan. Naruto simply sat down and crossed his arms, fondly smiling at her. It had been a while since he saw his sensei, and to be honest, he missed her eccentricities. Anko counted the number of genin left and raised an eyebrow. 57? Ibiki, you let 19 teams pass? You let them off too easy, she scoffed. Ibiki shrugged. This time we have quite an interesting bunch. Anko scoffed and was about to snark back when a familiar mop of blonde hair caught her eye. She smiled proudly when she saw Naruto sitting in the room, fondly smiling at her. As soon as she made eye contact, the smile turned into a smirk and he winked at her. Anko grinned savagely, now that she knew that her best and only student was in the exam. You may be right, Ibiki, she said. However, I'll cut those numbers in half in the second test. That, coupled with her savage grin, was enough to make everyone sweat a little. Naruto just shook his head. His sensei was as intimidating as ever. I will explain the details tomorrow. We will go to another place. So ask your Jonin sensei about where to go and that time. That is all. Dismissed. Everyone stood up to leave, while Anko smirked and walked in the direction of her former student. Naruto stood up as well, standing just 4 inches short of Anko's height. He waved his teammates away, who were looking curiously, telling them he will catch up later. What's up, brat? I didn't know that you were going to be in this exam. Naruto shrugged, putting his hands in his pockets. Even we didn't know until only a week ago, Anko-sensei. Ibiki raised an eyebrow, coming to stand with them. Sensei? So this is the brat Hokage-sama assigned to you. Naruto smiled, his whites showing. Uzumaki Naruto, pleased to meet you. Anko-sensei talked about you occasionally, Ibiki-san. You really did frighten all the genins to death. Ibiki smirked with Anko scoffed. If he really had, there wouldn't be 19 teams left. Ibiki jerked a thumb towards Naruto. You should thank him for that. Brat gave a speech that wiped all the fear I put into them. Anko scoffed. Anko puffed up proudly, never minding Ibiki's failure. Of course he did. He's my student after all. He was born to be a leader. Naruto smiled but turned serious. Though I do have a concern to raise. His serious tone was enough to catch their attention. What is it, Naruto? Anko asked with a frown. Naruto said, it's about a genin named Yakushi Kabuto. He seemed to have some sort of information cards that had info, mainly the mission stats and their strength and weaknesses on all the genin present. I believe it if he only had info on the genin of Konoha, but he also had it on the Suno nin Gaara, something that should only be known by the Kazekage and his council. He explained all his observation and conclusions to them. Ibiki and Anko paid serious attention to this, and by the end of his explanation were both frowning heavily. This is not good, Anko commented. Ibiki nodded, a hard look on his face. If what you say is true, we might have a spy in our midst. and having information like that means he has likely been a spy for years. Who knows what kind of information he has now? Naruto frowned, even when I'm not that sure. As I said, my own observations led me to this conclusion. Regardless of whatever he is, a spy or not, such matters have to be investigated for the sort of possibilities, don't they? Anko nodded. That is true. This matter will be taken to the Okage immediately. By Ibiki. Ibiki turned on Anko, an incredulous look on his face. You can't order your superior. You know that, right? Anko shrugged, putting an arm around Naruto's shoulder, not caring in the least that his face was right next to her assets. I know, but in the light that my student is in the Chunin exams, it is his duty to treat me to Dango. Let's go, brat. She started walking, not letting go of Naruto, who was struggling to get out of her embrace. Ibiki smiled and shook his head, muttering, just this time I'll let this one go. Jeez, we're already in chapter 15. Chapter 14. Yeah, I was right. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you all in the next part. Bye.
Wanted a bitch who was on the move, but you on a goddamn late. Got that one in my bed and she just wanna sleep. Fucking up all of the sheets. She only wake up to eat. Do this shit every week. Like, why you do that? Crying, you wanna be great, but sleeping until the next day. Why you do that? Got that much in the bank. We go out, she order the steak.